Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you all of OAP's new summer reading collection for 2024. I'm super excited to share this collection with you guys because it's basically a volume 2 of her first summer reading collection, which was her very first summer collection, which was also my very first all of OAP purchase. So that collection just really is so nostalgic to me, so I'm happy to see some additions to it. As usual though, I will save some more of my thoughts for the end after some comparisons. For now, let's just get into the swatches. The first polish we have in the collection is Xiala. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I hope that I am, but it's described as a light sky blue cream, and this one was a one coater, which I'm sure you can see for yourself, but I was just so blown away with how creamy and pigmented this formula was because my nails are a little bit longer, so I usually only find darker colors to be opaque in one coat, so this was such a pleasant surprise. I did still end up doing a second coat just to see if maybe I had missed a spot or anything, but I don't think it really changed anything for me. Granted, I am a little bit heavy-handed, but I think if you have shorter nails, you might be able to get away with this in just one coat, which I love, and the color's pretty too. Next up we have Leafy, and this is a bright yellow-leaning olive green cream. Before I get into the color, the formula on this one was so amazing too. I don't know if this just happened to dry down a little bit faster. You kind of saw me struggle a little bit with the right side of my nail where it didn't really self-level the best, so it was a little bit lumpy almost, but other than that, the pigmentation was so on point. This was another really creamy opaque formula, so potentially another one coater, and the color I thought was actually kind of cute. The next shade we have is Ambrose, and this one is described as a Paris green cream, which I had never heard of before as a description, but it's apparently an emerald green powder that was used for pigment, so that's super interesting. But yeah, this color is absolutely stunning. I actually got a comment not too long ago from someone saying that they were struggling to find a green leaning turquoise shade, and I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like this is so perfect for that. Either way, it is just a stunning color with a flawless formula. It's not as creamy and opaque as the previous two shades. This one is a little bit more on the crelly side, but still glides on your nail, just so easy to work with. Next up we have Chemistry, and this is described as a salmon pink cream with a subtle silver glow that gives the shade a cool toned finish. So I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous when I saw that sort of silver shimmer in the bottle, especially once I started applying it on my nail, because as you can see, it is very pigmented, very creamy and opaque, which I do love, but I thought it was gonna be a similar effect to Essie's Bikini Sotini, where it technically has a shimmer in the bottle, but it doesn't show up on the nail. But I think you can tell that this has a little something going on. It's just very, very subtle, like this internal pearly kind of glow. So it's not my favorite since I love in-your-face shimmers, but the color is still beautiful. The next polish we have is Theoretical, and this is a bright coral cream with a strong gold shimmer, and this one is way more up my alley. It doesn't quite have a super in-your-face glowy shimmer, but it's that gold shimmer that I think is very similar to other Olive Ave polishes like Blossom or Calla Lily, where it does stand out so nicely against the base. Obviously, I'm a big fan of this coral cream color as well. It's so perfect for summer. It just has that sunset kind of glow. This one had another fantastic formula that was very full coverage, just like a tiny bit sheer on the first coat, but I think it's a solid 2-coater. And rounding out the collection, we have Lucky, which is described as a pearl shimmer topper, but it's not pearlescent like you normally would think, where it's very streaky and brushstrokey. This almost has more of like a crushed pearl sort of look, where it almost has like a shimmer particle effect that you can hopefully see here on my nail. It's in a slightly milky white kind of base color, but the shimmer sort of has this purple color, which I think is really pretty. It's obviously very sheer on the first coat. I will be showing it as a topper over the creams in a second, but I first wanted to build this up on its own because I just love layering sheer whites like this. You see that white base build up more on the second coat, but it's still very sheer where you're gonna see some nail line. And honestly, even when you do a third coat, it doesn't really get covered up that much more. So if nail line bothers you, you might not want to use this on its own. I would recommend maybe trying it over a white cream or just a blurring base coat. I personally like how it looks. It just kind of has a more like wintry feel or almost like a frosted kind of look. And honestly, I think I even prefer this on its own. I didn't end up loving these over the creams. For some reason, this white topper just has very much like wintry vibes for me, so I feel like it just clashes with the base colors, but that's just me. I'm just happy we got another topper, honestly. I think it's just a fun way to easily dress up the many creams that OAP has. And here is the Summer Reading 2024 collection worn as a Skittle. I'm wearing 2 coats of each except for Xiala on my pinky. That's 1 coat. But again, with how short my nails are on this hand, I feel like I got really great coverage on the first coat alone. I think the colors are super cute. They're so bright. If anything, I guess Leafy looks like it doesn't really belong like the rest of the shades do in my opinion. But I was still surprised with how much I ended up liking that one. And here's the same Skittle topped with Lucky. And again, I'm not super in love with how this topper looks over these colors specifically. Like I mentioned before, I feel like the topper just gives me more wintry vibes, and so it just clashes with these bright summer colors. But I do like that it gives it this almost wet look. I feel like that's very nice for summer. Now getting into comparisons, we're starting with Xiala and obviously looking at it next to Skylight, which was the sky blue from last year's summer sunset collection. That one looks really similar in the bottle, but it's actually a little bit darker, maybe more cornflowery. And I also wanted to show it next to LA Looks from the Nostalgia collection a couple of summers ago. That one I think is a little bit brighter, maybe more of like a cyan instead of a sky blue. So it is kind of similar in value to Xiala, but just a different shade of blue. Next for Leafy, I wanted to show this next to Scape, which was the yellow leaning green from last year's spring collection, but this one's like the pastel version, but it's a lot lighter and more white based, so I thought something closer would be OAP's Lyra, which was from the original Summer Reading collection back in 2020. These look pretty similar in the bottle, but Lyra is actually a lot lighter. And I also wanted to show this next to Morgan Taylor's Flying Out Loud from the Up in the Air collection. Just by looking at them in the bottle, I thought they were going to be dupes, but I was so surprised to see just how different they are on the nail, where Leafy is just so much darker and a lot less chartreuse leaning. I think the other 2 shades definitely lean more yellow. So for some other kind of green comparisons, here it is next to Cirque's Matcha, which was sadly retired. That one is more of a true green. It has like a little bit of a yellow undertone, but very much green. I thought maybe Mooncat's Highway Glow would be a little bit more similar, but it's actually a lot lighter, so if anything, I would guess it's more similar to Lyra, for example, or at least it's more like a lime green instead of a yellowy olive kind of green. Then for Ambrose, I wanted to see how this compared next to OAP Zinnia from one of their spring collections a couple of years ago. I thought these were going to be a lot closer, but Zinnia is a lot more pastel, so does not compare. If anything, Ambrose is the closest to Palm Trees, which was also from the original Summer Reading collection, but that one's a little bit darker and maybe a little bit more turquoisey too, so definitely not dupes. But I think the closest shade that I have is ILNP's Bottoms Up from the Poolside collection a few summers ago. These definitely look so identical in this bottle shop, but there is a difference on the nail, where Bottoms Up I would say is maybe a little darker or just more saturated. So it almost looks like Ambrose is more white based, and then Palm Trees looks a little muted in comparison to the other 2. Then for Chemistry, this is definitely a very unique pink to OAP. Here it is next to Vernal from this past spring collection. That one's obviously a lot lighter, more of a neutral pink. So if anything, I think the closest pink that recently came out is Morgan Taylor's Got Some Altitude. It's from the same Up in the Air collection. It's just another warm, kind of hot or medium salmon pink, but that one is a little bit darker, I would say, and maybe a little bit warmer too. That silver shimmer in Chemistry really does make it a little more cooler and lighter. Next for theoretical, I of course had to show this next to Crake, which was the coral from the first summer reading collection. You can see just how old and well-loved this bottle is. So they're similar, but Crake is a little darker. If anything, I thought theoretical would be more similar to Cirque's Bird of Paradise from the Surfer's Crush collection last year. It's another kind of corally base with a golden shimmer, but Cirque's is a lot more sheer, a little bit lighter as well. And the shimmer is definitely a lot more glowy and in your face. It's more subtle in theoretical. So I would say they're kind of like cousins. And lastly for Lucky, I wanted to show this next to Flora, which was from a previous spring collection. It's basically another sheer white, almost pearlescent kind of topper, but the shimmer is blue head-on in Flora versus the purple in Lucky. And I feel like the actual shimmer particle is a little different, where it's maybe finer and more densely packed in Flora compared to how it looks in Lucky, where it's almost a little dispersed. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for OAP's Summer Reading 2024 collection. As always, I would love to know your thoughts on this release. What do you think of the color palette, the inspo? Are you familiar with the books? Because I will be honest, I am not, but I still am a big fan of this lineup. The colors are super gorgeous, so summery and bright with amazing formulas as always. Even though, to be completely honest, when I did first see the lineup, I was like, these are very familiar. I feel like OAP does tend to do that a lot with her releases, where the colors look very, very similar to existing creams that she has, but they're just like a little off. As you saw in my comparisons, they aren't dupes by any means, and I did end up preferring a lot of these new shades compared to the previous ones, so I'd love to know what you think about that. But if you are a big fan of these, you are going to be able to pick them up on Thursday, June 28th at 8 p.m. As a reminder, I am an affiliate with OAP, so if you do want to shop these shades while supporting me and my channel, you can do so by shopping through the link in my description box, and you can use my code YOGI10 to save 10% off your order. As always, a big thank you if you do support me through that. But even if you don't shop this collection, I almost forgot to mention that OAP is going to be lowering her free shipping threshold. So from now until the end of July, you can get free shipping on orders of $45 or more. There's no code needed. It'll apply once you have at least $45 worth of product in your cart. Shipping alone can sometimes be very expensive, and even the shipping thresholds can be quite high for some indie brands, so I really appreciate that Walker is going to be lowering it for the summer. I'd love to know if you do pick any of these shades up, what are your favorites, or just if you're going to be skipping them entirely. Let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!